Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Fridays with Vistage webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some items to help you participate in today's webinar. If you are experiencing technical difficulties joining the webinar session, please call support at 888-259-8414. When you join today's webinar, you selected to join either by phone call or computer audio. If for any reason you'd like to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in your control panel. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. I would now like to introduce the moderator of today's webinar, Bill Black.
Welcome to Fridays with Vistage. My name is Bill Black. I'm a Vistage member and your moderator today. The title of today's webinar is Attracting and Retaining Talent: How Benefits Programs Can Provide a Competitive Edge. You know, it's exceptionally hard to land the best people and a constant struggle to retain them. Offering competitive benefits programs is now more important than ever, but what benefits do employees really want? Across all ages and income levels, employees cite a wide range of challenges that impede their ability to build financial security, including rising healthcare costs, high debt levels, and the need to manage many competing financial priorities. Employees want and need help, and they're looking to employers to provide it. During this webinar, you're going to learn about the latest trends in benefits and insights into employee and employer expectations. Our speaker today is Kevin Crane. Kevin is the head of Workplace Financial Solutions for Bank of America Merrill Lynch. In this role, he is executive business leader for retirement, legislative, and public policy initiatives in Washington and leading the delivery of workplace solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Crane.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the time today to review this study and results, as Bill said, and really how do we attract and retain employees through the use of benefit programs. And we'll start right in on the presentation with our first slide talking about the war for talent and what's going on in the war for talent. As shown on the slide, it's becoming increasingly difficult to attract and retain talent. And that has a direct impact on businesses in many ways. In fact, human capital and not credit is often cited as a key obstacle to growth. So even when you do come across attractive candidates, how do you convince them to choose your company? Obviously, in the past, compensation was a major consideration, and in many cases still is for employees. But as has happened in corporate America, compensation is often constrained, and we're seeing limited compensation growth in most industry sectors. So what are the other things that are attracting candidates to join companies? Merrill Lynch conducted a CFO Outlook report that showed that employees are actually paying more and more attention to the benefit offerings of their employer when considering job opportunities. And we're even seeing examples, depending on age generations and income levels, where people even place a greater importance on benefits than even salary and other types of compensation. So with that, what are the benefits that are available? As you can see on this page, we find most companies offer, not surprisingly, at a very high percent, health insurance and retirement funding. And when we say retirement funding these days, primarily that would be 401k plans. However, more companies are expanding beyond those basics to offer some form of a wellness program, which we'll spend a good deal in this conversation today talking about wellness programs and how they are becoming more popular and in what ways. Specifically, financial wellness is an emerging benefit area. There's obviously been a lot of work in the past around health or physical wellness. Financial wellness often comes in the form of access to experienced people, financial counselors, financial advisors to give help. And as we'll talk about later, this speaks directly to what the employees are telling us that they need and want. So we expect to see that number growing significantly in the coming years. Helping employees in the area of financial wellness, we believe, will begin to give a competitive edge to companies that do this in the talent marketplace. We have seen in recent research Over 70% of employers, no matter what size companies, indicate that financial wellness programs will be a standard form of benefit given employees, no different than a 401k healthcare programs and healthcare savings. So with that, let's move on to the next slide, which begins to talk about the employers understanding their employees' financial concerns. Because many workers today may not consider healthcare coverage or retirement plans as differentiators, it's critical to understand what is most important to your employees. The goal, obviously, is to offer robust benefits tailored to the employee's specific needs and preferences. That's how you build loyalty, you improve employee satisfaction, you attract the talent your organizations are looking for, you obviously get greater employee appreciation of all that you're doing as an employer for your employees. Again, at Merrill Lynch, we've conducted a proprietary study, which we do on an annual basis, called the Workplace Benefits Report. And that studies employees' attitudes about a number of different factors: financial wellness, financial insecurity, benefit plan utilization, and other factors. What we have found, as shown on the slide, employees are most concerned with, first, their financial situation and how their financial situation affects their lives and plans for the future, which is what we refer to, as I mentioned on the page before, financial wellness. Second, the impact of rising health care costs. Impact in terms of their savings, impact in terms of how they live their lives, and obviously difficult decisions because this is a very high priority for them as individuals and with their families. And then third, the challenges of increased longevity, including the concern, is there a risk of outliving their savings? With so much on their minds, it's clear that a multifaceted approach to benefits is needed. A program that caters to a variety of employee concerns is a key to a more competitive benefits package, and that help and education programs are in place to help employees understand, appreciate, and utilize the benefits. You can't just leave it to the employees to figure all that out themselves. We have also found in all this work that employees have very baseline financial insecurities, going to the most elementary places such as how to save, how to budget, even creations of emergency funds, and how to effectively spend monies. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide, which begins to get a little bit deeper on the financial stress that employees are facing. So in looking at the slide, we're going to talk a little bit deeper about financial wellness and some of the results we found from the Workplace Benefits Report study that was just conducted this year. Employees are so concerned about their financial situation, as shown on the slide, 56% of them say they're experiencing some level of stress because of it. Now, no employer, I'm sure all of you on the phone, wants to have your employees feeling stress. And in this case, it's even more significant for employers because we're seeing linkages to the stress the employee is feeling to other impacts to the employee and their company, such as how they work, distraction, and impacts on productivity, and even going as far as potentially impacts on their physical well-being. As shown on the slide, 53% of employees report they are so stressed by their financial situation, it interferes with their ability to focus and be productive at work. Obviously, if an employee is stressed about a situation like their finances, there is going to be distraction. They're going to focus on that instead of other tasks. And that's exactly what we're seeing. As shown here, more than 20% of the workforce reports spending 5 or more hours on personal financial matters at work each week. On average, across all that were surveyed, employees spend at least 2 hours each week focused on their personal financial matters while at work. So even taking that measure, that's over 100 hours a year per employee that could be attributed to distraction due to this serious situation that they're worried about. As also shown on the slide, this financial stress is cross-generational, and we're going to talk later on again about the impact of multi-generations or how the different generations want delivery of financial wellness and their insecurities managed. As shown on this page, millennials are 2 times as likely as baby boomers to say that stress interferes with their work. And that may not be all that surprising. If they're entering the workforce, they may have issues where they're not yet able to afford and have to live at home versus on their own. College debt is a major issue in the millennial population, and just getting started in a career and making a lot of difficult decisions. And this just isn't a productivity issue. Nearly 60% of the workforce feels that financial stress is adversely affecting their health, including 68% of millennials. That's significant because if the employees feel unhealthy, they may seek assistance with their health, and that leads to another source of financial stress. So this issue brings together business owners' concerns on the finances and costs of their company, coupled with human resources, healthcare, and the benefit side of the company, with the issues of decreased productivity and the potential of increased healthcare costs. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide, which talks about the employees' struggles, particularly on the topic of healthcare costs. On this page, we're going to talk about a probably not surprising topic, which is rising healthcare costs. We hear this concern from employees survey after survey. Cost concerns coupled with healthcare being the most important benefit that an employee will normally answer that they want and expect from their employer and need. Employees are worried about rising costs, and for good reason. Nearly 79% of the employees surveyed said they've experienced an increase in healthcare costs over the past 2 years. And because they've had to cover that expense, they're now linking it to matters of connecting it to not saving money in other places or not saving as much money as they would if they didn't have this issue in healthcare costs. By paying more for healthcare, employees have less cash for things like putting money into the 401ks or other retirement plans. In fact, as shown on this slide, 62% of employees who've been affected by rising healthcare costs are now also saving less for retirement. That's even more significant when you consider that 64% of employees are already worried about running out of money in retirement. Also, a high percent of employees have even the most baseline issue of maybe not having enough emergency savings, let's say if they had an event and needed to live off of the next 3 or 4 months of not having income. These are problems that we have to confront in organizations and in our country. Both healthcare and retirement should be priorities, and we need to find a way to help employees prioritize both, and we certainly need to help with education and programs to get them to understand the linkages and to help and advise them on what they can do to manage this successfully. An example of this is health savings accounts, or what's called HSAs, which are becoming a fast-growing trend. We'll discuss there'll be further discussion of HSAs a little bit later in here, but just to start for a minute on these, health savings accounts, which are linked to high deductible health plans, was a benefit that was formed in 2005, and it's already seen incredible growth. Today, somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 20 million people have a health savings account, and that's projected to potentially double over the next period of years based on its increased usage. We see employers are helping employees to understand these accounts early on by seeding them. We see a high popularity with these accounts with the younger generations, millennials. And we're beginning to see a little bit of a trend of integrating the HSA, at least in terms of education and getting the employees to understand in terms of usage, integration with 401ks. So with that, I'll move on the next slide to talk about financial wellness, the focus and need for employers. So as you can see, when we've had the discussion about the financial stress increasing for the employees and a particular concern being rising healthcare costs and the rising healthcare costs relating to the employees maybe not saving enough as they need to, there is no doubt employees need help with their financial situations. It's natural that, given the obvious connection to finances and work, employees would look to employers for assistance. After all, more than 2/3 of employees say that their retirement savings plan at work, which primarily these days the active one would be the 401k, will be the basis for their retirement income. And 83% of employees indicate that the financial benefits, not including salary, offered by their employers are critical to their financial security. That's a major impact on recruitment and retention of employees. For employers, there is an opportunity here, not only to offer assistance to your employees with their financial wellness, their financial stress, and even potentially their health, but also to remain competitive in the war for talent. As I said earlier, a high percent of employers will offer, they say will offer, as a form of benefit in the near future, financial wellness programs unto themselves. More and more employers know this. 83% of employers, as shown on this page, feel responsible for the financial wellness of their employees. And 51% believe their employees want to improve in this area, that their employees would be seriously interested, would take steps, and would engage in their financial wellness if offered these programs. That is a big difference. If we had surveyed employers 5 or 10 years ago, we're likely a very small percent of employers at that point would have said they feel responsible in some way for the financial wellness of their employees. Again, this is an opportunity to assist and educate employees. 86% of employees say they would participate in a financial wellness education program if their employer offered one. Remember, employees are already spending a significant amount of time at work dealing with personal financial matters, what we talked about earlier in terms of the amount they're distracted at work each week. In addition to potentially lowering employee stress and improving employee health, offering a financial education program and helping employees improve their personal financial management could potentially increase employee productivity and hopefully also improves physical health. Also, financial wellness programs will drive greater benefits program utilization and appreciation. So on the next slide, I'm going to move on to talk about a little bit broader topic, which is the topic around longevity trends and the impact of that on financial wellness and financial security. So beyond what we just talked about, what else is on employees' minds? Longevity. Americans are living longer than ever before. I would even argue beyond Americans in the world's living longer than ever before. The average life expectancy is dramatically increasing. Today, somewhere in the mid-80s in terms of both males and females. Projections that, if you look out another 50 to 100 years, the average life expectancy could be closing in on close to 100. There are several factors that are scientifically shown to help increase the likelihood of living a long and healthy life. For example, one of the bigger ones is remaining socially engaged and practicing healthy living behaviors. Keeping in touch with family members and friends, staying active, eating right, all the basics. There's also been some correlation or thoughts. Is there a correlation between an ability to slow, let's say, cognitive decline, some of those trends, with being very socially active and engaged well into your life? What's interesting is that building financial security is also a key factor to living comfortably. Indeed, living longer presents its own challenges, like ensuring there's enough money to live on and paying for health care in retirement, but it also has an impact on the family. Caring for elderly relatives is a huge issue facing many Americans today, and supporting a multi-generational family can create additional stress. There are all sorts of studies being done now that show millions of people in the country are caregivers in some ways of family members, and caregivers that are actually at work every day working their jobs. The issue of the family bank has begun to arise, where people in their middle generation, in their 40s into their 50s, have two levels above them and below them that they need to take care of besides themselves. Elderly parents they may need to financially support. Children, obviously, as they grow up and go to college. That's a significant financial stress. People over age 50 are experiencing the greatest strains. 60% are providing financial support for both children and parents and are feeling the financial strain of having to serve, as I just said, as the family bank. They're being pulled financially in both directions. But 88% over age 50 are not prepared and did not anticipate it. And couple that, and not surprisingly, 83% feel responsible for their parents. One of the biggest issues of late that comes in as, obviously, as parents grow older, And studies will show once parents grow beyond age 85, there's more potential for Alzheimer's or cognitive decline. That is a huge responsibility on now the adult children to be involved in, and obviously want to be responsible for their parents having their best life and well-being before death. So with that, let me move on the next slide to the multi-generational workforce and the need for a flexible financial wellness offering. On this slide, we start to look at how different age generations that every employer, I'm sure, has, from millennials to Gen X to baby boomers, their different attitudes and their different needs and desires for financial wellness. There are some key issues on employees' minds today. How do you deliver benefits and address communication preferences across a multi-generational workforce is a critical issue. Today's workforce is unique. There's today 3 distinct generations, as I just said, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. There's a 4th, soon coming Gen Z, and right now millennials are a very fast part growing of that population. But when you just have 3 different age generations, regardless of size, in the same organization, you're going to be faced with different priorities and preferences. So let's talk for a minute about millennials. Millennials, as I said a minute ago, have become the largest part of the workforce. A 2015 Pew Research study showed that millennials tend to be less loyal than other generations. There are studies that show that in the first 10 years, millennials may change jobs 3, 4, or 5 times. With that, they also place a high priority on benefits, flexible benefits, portable benefits, and prefer flexible work schedules. They also are strong supporters and desire communications via digital delivery, chat, mobile, social media messaging. One thing is clear for financial wellness and employee expectations in terms of a key similarity. All generations, from millennials, Gen X's to baby boomers, want one-on-one, true personalized financial planning as access to an individual, a financial professional, and likely in many cases to do that in person. The younger generations are more technically savvy and comfortable using online tools, but all 3 generations, when you talk about true personalized financial planning, want the human connection to have that delivered to them. So the solution in this is not one size fits all, but instead a combination of digital tools and personal guidance, which is likely to suit all preferences and prove more effective at supporting employees. So with that, let me move on in terms of your actions as an employer. So what does this mean for you, your organization, and your employees? Where can you rise above the competition and provide meaningful differentiators in the area of benefits? And we see 4 big areas there that you as an employer can take what is being talked about here and what we'll continue to talk about through the question and answer period, and start to move forward with your employees around greater appreciation and utilization of the benefits you already offer, maybe introduction of helping them with more education and advice and financial wellness programs, and hopefully all that resulting in decreasing their financial insecurity feelings and improving their wellness overall, both physical and financial. First, we strongly believe to provide financial wellness and education in terms of an offering that you would give your employees. It's become clear that employees are experiencing financial stress. It's causing their health and productivity to decline, as we talked about earlier. And they're spending most of their time at work. So it's natural, as we found in these studies, that the employee is looking to the employer for help managing their finances. And we actually take that as a very encouraging finding. Employees are having struggles, they're having issues, they're now saying they need help and advice. That was something we found in the last few years, which was a major shift. They need it. They're now saying of late, in another major step forward, in knowing they need it, they actually want to look to their employer as the source for that. Now, obviously, their employer will get help in working with providers to do that, but they want their employer to be the one that offers them that help and advice. So we actually take all this as a very positive thing, that people recognize in being financially insecure, they need the help to be less financially secure. They're looking to their employer as a key source, as well as we said earlier, for their retirement and savings benefits to be the help. And now it's upon the employer to do that. So our conversation, as we said, related to this first item, that the quick advancement that financial wellness unto itself will become a benefit offering for employees is a key outcome of that first action we think employers should take. Second, obviously, there's still a remaining issue around healthcare costs. Now, healthcare costs, and to be fair to employers, is a very complex situation, which even includes at times governmental policy considerations about how you manage healthcare costs. And healthcare costs obviously continue to be on the forefront of the mind of the employees, color their attitudes about their financial security, color their attitudes about how they save, and the employees are really asking strongly for help for planning for these increased expenses. But as we said earlier, the trend towards high deductible health plans coupled with HSAs, employers may be seeding the HSA up front. Also, as we've seen in the healthcare space, we talked about financial wellness here and all the things to help someone become financially well. There's obviously been a lot of good work in the healthcare space around physical wellness and the appreciation of employees about what they need to do to improve their physical wellness. And those have been very positive impacts to help moderate healthcare costs in terms of driving people to the right behaviors, including even at certain companies, competitions around exercise programs or use of Fitbits or other things to drive more physical activity. Third, this issue of longevity, which is really it's a good thing, actually, if we can have people live longer and more productive lives. That's a great thing, but employees need help in navigating the impacts on that. As we talked earlier, one of the biggest things in this is the whole concept of the family bank. How do we help middle generations of the employees at companies with planning for that they may have situations, again, right emotions to want to help their parents who are living longer and need the help, obviously have their children who they want to help and support for education. How do we help earlier in life have people plan and think about that? But I would say as well, how do we also, as employers, start to progress on things like elder care benefit programs? Both from a government policy standpoint, which has been great, and employers, which has been great, there's been a lot of work done on parents, first being parents with their young children, and great parental leave programs. Well, now the question will be, as we advance, why is that same concept not taken to people that are middle generation to create leave programs for those people to do the thing that is probably arguably as emotionally important as when you have your child, which is taking care of your parent as they need the help and they need the help later on in life? Why not create those same types of leave programs in some way to help the employees have the opportunity to do that for their parents? And then fourth, the multi-generational workforce. Again, a challenge, an opportunity, and a good thing, but what it's begging in here is you need a multifaceted approach in terms of communicating, because the priorities of each age generation is different, the way they interact is different, except for the one unifying purpose of a personalized financial plan. So having programs that are delivered via mobile, delivered via the web, the ability to converse via chat or text, call centers, even written communications, and organizing those communication mediums against the different age generations as they best consume and digest information. That ultimately is the ultimate key to success in the delivery of financial wellness program. It must be multifaceted in its communications mode. It cannot be communicated to the workforce in the same way. So with that was all the time we were going to take today in terms of our opening, in terms of discussing the attracting and retaining talent and how the use of financial wellness and the use of traditional benefits can be very powerful tools for companies to both attract employees. And as we said at the beginning of this, it is becoming a key requirement of how an employee looks at a company when they stay in terms of their being retained. And I'll pause and we'll open it up to questions and take the second part of this to answer questions. Thank you.
Kevin, that is an intriguing and very enlightening presentation. We really appreciate it. We have several questions, so we'll jump right into those. First is, we constantly hear people are not saving enough. Short of raising the match on our 401k, what specific actions do you recommend to help our employees save more for retirement?
That's a great question. And I'd go to the plan design. So I certainly understand that the match is an expense for a company, obviously, and they need to consider that. And I know many companies are as generous as they can be on that. So I look to plan design, and one of the first places I look is the 401k program is predicated mainly over that employees themselves are going to save. So I go to the enrollment process. We have found, study after study, working with clients, the more you can simplify and maybe in some cases eliminate the decision making of the employee, the more successful advocate things will happen. So obviously in saying that, I jump to something like automatic enrollment and automatic increase in terms of potentials. We have found very low opt-out rates when participants are auto-enrolled. It is a particularly effective medium for younger generations. Again, they actually respond well to it. They don't mind if when they start day one, someone enrolls them in the plan at a certain default percent. And then, we feel strongly you can't just stop there because you're actually normally auto-enrolling people that are inert in their savings behavior. They haven't done something. So they're not going to probably wake up even if you auto-enroll them. So we would advocate auto-enrolling combined with automatic increases over a certain set years will drive someone to the right ultimate savings rate. And we have found in those types of uses and philosophies, very low opt-out rates. People don't opt out. They could opt out if they'd like, but they don't. So the use of automation has helped drive greater savings behaviors. If not that, simplifying the enrollment process. So at least make it easy for the person, 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks in order to do it. Don't make it a laborious process. And I would also advocate, obviously, make it an automated process for them to do. They don't have to fill out a form and submit it and have it go somewhere else is great. And I would also say in plan design, obviously, as soon as possible, giving access to the plan. If you have the plan, but they're going to have to wait a year to go in the plan or 2 years to go in the plan, that really begins to take away from them the priority of how important it is to be in this plan. So it's all about engaging your employees in smart ways. We have a tool called Personal Financial Journey that helps personalize for people on even a broader level, financial education, teaching them about savings and the importance of that. Those would be the things I would say.
Excellent, thank you. Beyond a 401k plan, what can employers offer their employees to encourage saving?
So I'm going to go back to the topic I said earlier around health savings just for a minute. And again, I think it's in the forefront of discussions in this country in terms of health savings accounts. And, I will start to be fair and say a health savings account at this point can only be offered if you also have offered a high deductible health plan. But there is a lot of focus on this. 40% of employees when we study believe their health benefits are a top employer benefit. Probably not surprising to any of you. The linkages, if you have a high deductible health plan to a health savings account, as I said earlier, have grown tremendously. I think the key is both 401ks and health savings accounts have certain strong tax incentives and advantages. But even if you offer both, the issue is it is not intuitively obvious in terms of an employee where to put a dollar. So we're advocating when we say put the two together, they are different plans, but put education together. Link in the employee's minds that both these things, the 401k and the HSA, are for longer term savings. The 401k for your longer term retirement savings. The HSA, hopefully, if used properly and retained and the tax incentives of it and invested long term, for your long term health care expenses. Because there are all sorts of studies that say once someone retires, they need an X amount in terms of their income post retirement to live on, but they also need X amount in terms of just what's going to hit them in healthcare costs beyond what they're going to get for health insurance post-retirement. So I think, this linkage, as I said, beyond the 401k plan of really the health savings concept, but really linking the education. If you have a dollar to save, where to put it? How should you invest similarly between the two programs? Encouraging employees to think of the two programs more as a combination of something for longer term post-retirement. That to me would be a very critical place in terms of look beyond the 401k to encourage savings.
Very good. If we wanted to start a more general financial education program for our employees, what's the first step? Are employees very widely in age work in multiple locations, and they have different schedules. So I'm not sure a one-size-fits-all approach would work.
Right, and I would readily agree with the supposition of that question that that's 100% right. One size fits all will not work. Because, as was raised in the question, different age generations, even work schedules, as was raised, work environments, causes you need to have a multifaceted approach. I'm going to actually start in a place of an example of a program that kind of goes to the heart of this question. One thing we found of late with companies, that's one of the earliest programs they want to offer when they talk about financial wellness as a benefit, is some sort of new hire program. So when I've worked with companies, they'll say to me, I'm hiring, and it looks like the economy is good and people are hiring these days, but I'm hiring and I bring in new employees, and the company recognizes the first thing they do to those employees is just kind of really throw at them a lot of different benefit programs. Here's information, employee, on your 401k. If they have the HSI high deductible health plan, here's that. Even if they don't, here's your information on your healthcare plan. They may have other types of tuition reimbursement plans. They may have, commuter travel plans in terms of saving money on that. There are all these benefits they throw at the person day one. And what they're recognizing is, well, why don't I start there and create a financial wellness program around that topic and bring in financial wellness education counselors to, as the employer offers these benefit programs in the introductory meeting with the employee, also say, now let's talk about the importance of savings, the importance of budgeting, the importance of spending, particularly the budgeting component, and let's help you as an employee new to our company understand our benefits, understand at times the linkages of them, but most importantly, help you with budgeting to hopefully give you comfort that you can allocate your monies in a way to take advantage of those programs as much as you should. That's become a very popular early stage financial wellness program that, as this question asks, is appealing to a certain demographic, new hires, and normally younger generations in terms of that. I would also flip it on the other side and say to this question, another type of program more on the other end is pre-retiree programs. We work with companies, and when I say pre-retiree, what we're trying to do is not say pre-retiree meaning age 60 or age 62, because that's too close to retirement if people still have issues for them to have time to solve their issues. When we say pre-retiree, we're working with companies and saying, let's start with people age 50. They still hopefully are going to work another 10, 15, and many people now are trying to work even longer in life, 10, 15, 20 years. Let's start with them and say, but you are approaching, in some ways, retirement getting closer in your life, but you still have 10, 15, 20 years to do things, and talk to them about a catch-up contribution option, a 401k that's available to them. Other types of savings vehicles, if they have the abilities to do it, that's available. And most importantly, at age 50, starting to project and think about retirement income. What do they want it to be? How prepared are they? If they're not, how can they prepare more for it?
You mentioned something about self-directed financial wellness programs that B of A and Merrill Lynch offer. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. So we're definite believers that when you look at, again, the multifaceted approach of employee financial wellness, that the ability for individuals that really want to kind of control their destiny and do stuff themselves, but get personalization with that, is great. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, we find throughout our business the use of digital, and I don't just mean on a transactional basis, the use of digital in terms of delivering personalized information, getting people to interact with it when it's right for them, at night or during the day to do it. And people are really responding well to that. So I'll give an example of that in the financial wellness space. We have a product, and I mentioned it earlier during this presentation, called Personal Financial Journey, which we just launched on June 1st. And you can access it at the Bank of America Bank at Work website. It offers employees three things. First, a robust online education experience that there's a whole ton of content on there with articles and videos and tools to educate people generally about financial wellness. And as I said, some of those more specific topics I've talked about throughout this presentation on budgeting, on savings, on the importance of diversification, on the importance of managing your spending. Second, there are two ways to navigate the personal financial journey. One, you can interact yourself. You answer, and we've kept this pretty simple in terms of the number of questions, and identify certain life stages, and then it really prepares a personalized curriculum for you in terms of that. Or two, if you don't want to do that, you can self-navigate yourself through all the curriculum that exists. And then the third part of this, what I would call, to your question, self-directed financial wellness tool, is the content is available to them, as I said earlier, no matter when they want to get it. Since it's digital, they can do part of it now, put it to the side, come back to it. It has saved all the access they've already previously done, and they can continue to access it. So I think as the world has gotten more digital, people actually, some element of people, particularly the millennials, younger generation, they love the delivery this way, and they don't feel like they're being pushed into a digital channel. And it is obviously an effective large-scale way of delivering information. But I would also say in this, the goal of it is, as I said earlier with this tool, the ability that you can also personalize it, and you're not just going to some website and there's just 10,000 things on there and you have to figure out for yourself what you need to access.
Excellent. Sounds like a great tool. Kevin, how can retirement plans be used as a tool to attract and retain employees?
Well, so we said earlier, in one of the stats, there was a huge telling statistics in the most recent workplace benefits report that a very large percent of employees view the retirement plan benefits, which today primarily could be 401k, as one of the most important sources of their retirement income and retirement success in the future. So you start there in terms of, if you're going to attract and retain employees, hopefully you have a pretty robust retirement plan offering because your employees are putting a lot of emphasis on that for what is important for their future. The other thing too is retirement plans in many cases, again, I'll kind of go to both the 401k and the HSA, have strong tax incentives. Obviously, with the 401k, the ability to do a pre-tax contribution. I'd also say in 401k, the flip side is there are also ways in terms of using after tax, like Roth 401k, as another way in terms of managing your taxes. And obviously in 401ks, the ability to have monies and income deferred in the program until the point you need to take it out and then it's taxed at that purpose is strong for tax incentives. The health savings accounts go even a little bit further in terms of their tax incentives. Obviously, the ability to put in money on a pre-tax basis, like a 401k, having the money in the plan, if invested longer term, the interest on that not being taxed either. But then third, different than the 401k, the additional tax incentive that if the monies were to be used out of the account and spent on qualified medical, it has to be spent on qualified medical purposes, then it's not taxed there either. Put those two types of programs together, very strong tax incentives, and obviously your ability to offer those, that's an important attraction and retention for the employee tool. And, I would say beyond that, when you think retirement plans or offerings, as I said earlier, it'll be interesting to see the advancement of elder care programs to help employees later generation take care of their parents. It will also be interesting in terms of leave programs, sabbatical programs. And then on millennials, I would just, particularly on the attraction and retention there, those benefit programs I just mentioned, but the fact for millennials, there's a portability to the program has been critically important to their decision making as they look at employers and the attraction to go to the employer, and obviously their ability to stay with the employer, even though if I say portability of programs, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, if they're portable, don't they want to take them and leave them? I think it's the fact that the perception is they're portable attracts a millennial to staying at the company, but that they can always think that the account or the program is theirs and not the employer's.
So you've mentioned that retirement and health benefits are the top two benefits for employees. Do you see these benefits becoming more integrated in the next decade?
I do. I know I spent a lot of time on this. I do because, as I said a few minutes ago, I think the key in integration is, and they're becoming to be looked at this way, is Both those programs, if used in the way I said earlier, long term, they arrive at the same end conclusion, which is helping someone later on in their life address arguably post-retirement, the two most critical things they need to address in terms of living a long, productive life post-retirement. One would be creating an income source for them to live on year after year post-retirement, and hopefully the 401k, and if obviously they had other programs like a defined benefit or deferred comp, that would also help, but let's say the 401k does that. The second being, no matter what, and no matter what with your health insurance, there'll be some level of health expense that you will need to spend money on post-retirement, that you will need to have monies for that, and that's where the health savings account comes in. So I think, those two programs coming together in terms of longer term income or abilities to have monies to use is critically important in terms of further integration of them. As I said, the integration of them in terms of education, if you have $1 to save, where would you put it? Between those two programs, understanding the tax incentives of those two programs, and also at times even understanding the spend down decisions of those two programs. Like in an HSA, the premise is obviously in many cases a younger person uses that with a high deductible because they're healthier. They don't really need the monies from the accounts shorter term, and that's the value of that program. So hopefully education to teach people that, and not to go into that account and use it every year like what used to exist in a flexible spending account is critically important. So I do continue to see that the 401k and the HSA, I think in both education, in similarities of designs, and then obviously in terms of utilization considerations being put together at the same time, and maybe even the employer funds both of those, I do see further integration of those two.
Excellent. Just a couple more questions, and we're talking with Kevin Crane, Head of Workplace Financial Solutions at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Kevin, how do the needs of millennials and baby boomers differ in terms of retirement plans and financial wellness programs?
So the first place I would go in that answer would be access, communications. How do you talk to each population? And I say that because both the populations are digital users. They are. I mean, I'm in the baby boomer category, so I definitely use lots of digital. But for millennials, the main source of interaction for them is digital, social networks. For those of you on the phone of my generation, if you have kids that are millennials, they like to chat and text. They will talk on the phone a little bit, but they do like to chat and text. That use of medium, the way they're communicated to, in terms of instant messaging, messaging through social media, even electronic delivery of messaging to them. They're very digital oriented. The way they like to take actions is the same way. Make it easy, make it digital. And they also, the millennials, when you look at retirement plans and financial wellness programs, also incentives. They love, if you look at credit cards, for example, they love rewards programs. So I think in any of these programs, like a retirement plan, they're going to immediately look, is the employer matching to what level? A financial wellness program, I think millennials are going to look for incentives. How do I do this? If I do it, what am I going to get? And I also think with millennials, they're going to look for scoring. They're competitive. We found in our consumer bank business, millennials are very attracted to the FICO score. They like the FICO score. They like to look at it. They like to understand it. They like to know how they can do better. So for millennials, there's all that. For baby boomers, obviously they use digital in different ways. I think for the baby boomers, because their challenges later on in life are different, they are drawn to more human interaction, seminars, one-on-ones, specific counseling. I think they're also drawn to personalization in terms of projections. I think baby boomers, because of being later on in their working life, are being drawn to, what does this mean in the next 10 or 15 years for me? Or the 15 or 20 years, what is the projection on this? So as they approach retirement, they feel more comfortable. You there, Sil?
Sorry, my mute button wouldn't come off. Kevin, what types of financial counseling programs does Bank of America Merrill Lynch offer?
So a wide diversity. I mean, we all the digital things I mentioned earlier are obviously there. I mean, we've had to, as a bank and a retirement services provider, and we love doing this, offer everything digital in terms of mobile and web and online and all those aspects. But I'd go on to say we definitely have seen in financial counseling and financial wellness, there's great interest, obviously, and there's the need to scale and offer things in terms of on-site seminars at companies. And we have found if we do a seminar at a company, having the ability right after that to offer one-on-one consultations is very important, because a pretty good percent of people uptick from the seminar and say, boy, I'd like to sit down with someone one-on-one, and are being able to do that. And then obviously using places that people in terms of our bank would visit. If you look at bank branches, you look at wealth management locations, even the integration of all that at a bank branch, that people will come in and want to talk as they're doing other banking transactions and talk about like financial counseling. So in a total broad array of all that.
Okay, and our last question is there a minimum size company to offer a financial wellness program through Bank of America Merrill Lynch?
No, actually not. And the reason for that is because of everything I said earlier, that the ability to offer it multi-channel and all the channels I just talked about, and the ability through digital and other ways to personalize it efficiently and scale it, we actually feel very strongly the answer to that question should be no, because all companies of all sizes who obviously have multi-generational employees, employees of different income and wealth, they all need this. And we don't want to set up a situation by the delivery of the program that's only available to certain types of companies or size companies. And I would argue, actually, we found some of the smaller, less mature companies that are just forming, which is fantastic, they're probably in the most need, because they're just forming some of their benefits. They're hiring a small group of employees out of the gate. They want the employees to get off on the right foot. They don't want to lose those employees because they're not a big company. So we feel very strongly that our design of the programs had to be done in a way that, be it a company of 10 people or 50, all the way up to companies of thousands or tens of thousands, this need is important universally.
Kevin Crane, Head of Workplace Financial Solutions for Bank of America Merrill Lynch, thank you so much for joining us for a very informational and educational workshop and webinar today.
Thank you.
I want to remind listeners that our upcoming webinars, Friday, August 11th, 2017 at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, how to conduct a talent and culture gap analysis. And on Friday, August 18th, 2017, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, rev your growth engine into high gear. On behalf of Vistage Worldwide and Fridays with Vistage, this is Bill Black wishing you continued success. This ends today's webinar.